else in the chat? And we'll get started in just a second. Good morning.
Yes, can I go ahead and talk?
Sure.
Okay, great. Good morning. My name is Gerda Govini Tuarte. I live in Hamu, and I'm a poet and cultural promoter, and I'm just glad to be here today. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Hudak with Californians for the Arts, and I'd like to take a minute to turn the mic over to Felicia Shaw. She's on the board of directors for Californians for the Arts and California Arts Advocates, and she's also the board chair for San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, one of our co-hosts for this event this morning. Felicia, would you mind starting our morning off?
I sure will. Good morning, welcome, and thank you everyone for being here today. Again, my name is Felicia Shaw, and my daytime job, I'm the executive director of the Women's Museum of California. But today I'm wearing two additional hats. One is a member of the board of California Advocates for the Arts, our statewide arts advocacy agency, and two, as chair of the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, that's been San Diego's arts advocacy organization for more than 30 years. I'm excited about today's regional conversation for three reasons. First, it provides both of our organizations, CFTA and SDRAC, with an opportunity to hear from our constituents about the issues that matter to you and that you want us out there fighting for this year. I'm also excited because this is SDRAC's first public program of the year. Lots of change happening at SDRAC, good stuff. So we're getting off to a great start by making community engagement a priority. And finally, because January is that time of the year when we all resolve to up our game and continue good practices, I'm excited that we have the chance to start the new year together with a shared commitment to put art and culture at the top of everyone's agenda. There's so much to be gained when we work together in support of arts and culture. So we're packing a lot into our short program today with opportunities to learn, to listen, and be inspired. I want to thank everyone who helped make today's event possible, including our other co-sponsors, the Oceanside Public Library and the Oceanside California Cultural District. And a special thank you to the CFTA staff for their hard work. And now, I'd like to introduce Victoria Hamilton, Chair of California Advocates for the Arts, member of SDRAC, my friend and partner in crime for over 30 years, to share with you what's in store with you for everyone today. Victoria?
Oh, thank you, Felicia. Yes, we have been partners in crime, and I love every minute of it. And it's my pleasure also to welcome you on behalf of California Arts Advocates and Californians for the Arts. I knew we were going to hit it out of the park. We have over 100 people in attendance today. Thank you so much. I mean, this is huge. This is the fourth of 11 regional conversations, and they've been really interesting and very fulfilling. And by far, we have the largest attendance. So thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to let you know we're disappointed, but understanding that our assembly member, Tasha Bonner Harbaugh, who was going to be in attendance today, had a conflict. But on another note, we're very, very fortunate to have her as the newly elected chair of the Assembly Committee on Arts, Entertainment, Sports, Tourism, and Internet Media. And this is a really important role. As many of you know, she represents the 76th district, which encompasses Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, Vista, Carlsbad, and Encinitas. She will be hearing from us during the budget and throughout the year on arts policies and funding opportunities. So before we launch into everything, this slide gives you some instructions about how we will conduct ourselves during the meeting today. So please, you can raise your hand using that function. You can enter questions into your chat box and make sure that if we're open for discussion, that you let others speak and finish their thoughts and make space and take space equitably. So we'll revisit this later on in the meeting. We have a lot of content. I'm very excited to spend some time around the cultural districts discussion later in the meeting. So thank you very much, Tracy. I hand it over to you. I think we have a few introductions.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, good switch to the spotlight there. Next slide, please. I want to let folks know that the raise hand feature is located within the reactions icon, the bottom of your Zoom screen. And Felicia already acknowledged our partners, our collaborators, CJ Demento, and you'll get to meet and hear from her later during the Cultural District conversation, and Robert Parker from the Public Library. Next slide, please. I also want to ask our board members, the planning committee, to please use the raise hand feature so I can introduce and thank you. Victoria Hamilton, who you just heard from, she's the president of the Board of California Arts Advocates, was an important collaborator, and Jonathan Gloos, Bridget Cantu-Ware, Salug Smith. If we could turn the spotlight feature off of Victoria, then folks can see everybody. Thank you. Terrific. And then I'd like to introduce our staff and any other board members that are on board. I wish we could see you. Like to introduce our staff. I'm Tracy Hudak, the Manager of Programs and Organizational Advancement for Southern California. Kara Smith is my counterpart in Northern California. Eddie Robles is the Communications and Field Engagement Manager. And of course, Julie Baker, who I promise you're going to hear from right now, our Executive Director. And I wanted to also remind folks that, or share that this is our third year for regional conversations, our statewide listening. And the San Diego conversation is the 4th out of 11. If you'd like to learn about the schedule for the other conversations, we're going to copy a link of that in the chat. And regional conversations, as Felicia indicated, are really the lifeline between us and you, and shape and inform our work and empower us to fight for you on the state level. There's a link in this particular slide. You'll get this in your packet that will allow you to see the summary of data from last year's conversations, and we will be gathering the same here. But Julie will talk to us about what we were able to accomplish with your input last year, as well as state and federal legislation updates. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Julie Baker, our Executive Director.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tracy. And I'm so happy to be zooming into San Diego County today. You guys rock it. Over 100 people participating. So excited to be here with you. My name is Julie Baker. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And today I'm zooming in from the land of the Nevada City, unceded land of the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan, otherwise known as Nevada City, California. And I'm about an hour outside of Sacramento. And Eddie, if you can advance me to the next slide, I'd really appreciate it. This is, we got a lot to cover, and I'm going to try and do it quickly because there's so much great content here today for you. So basically, we have two organizations. If you're not as familiar with who we are, we have a C4, which is a lobbying organization. We have a lobbyist in Sacramento. That is where we directly try to influence budget allocations, the resources, and legislation that can impact arts, culture, creative industries, and workforce. And then on our C3 side, your nonprofit Californians for the Arts, we present things like this, regional conversations, arts, culture, and creativity month. We are your advocacy service organization. We are here to help you learn how to be effective arts advocates, both locally, statewide, and at the federal level. Keep you informed with trainings and toolkits and all the good things so that we can advance our sector and get what we need in order to be sustainable. So next slide. I want to just touch on who we are as an organization, what our statement of values, what we believe in. We are on a journey, and I believe we're on this journey together to be an anti-racist organization. And I say journey because this is not just writing a statement, you check the box and we're done. This is ongoing work and something we deeply, deeply believe is critical to the success, not only of our organization, but of what we do at the state level. And we are committed to advancing this and all the work that we do, internal policies and procedures, the way we do our own hiring and every aspect of our own internal work, as well as what we advance at the state level in terms of developing policies, public policies, and what we're looking for in terms of equity assessments. However, we look to you also to hold us accountable to this work. We try to be as transparent as possible, but we know that this is ongoing work, and I just wanted to start with the fact that we are committed to this, and we hope you'll join us in that commitment and working with us to advance that in the state of California. Next slide. I want to just quickly highlight some of the things that altogether we worked on as advocates to achieve last year in 2021. It was an exciting year where we joined in coalition with colleagues at NIVA, National Independent Venues Association of California, California Association of Museums, and our lobbying organization, California Arts Advocates, to ask of the state for $1 billion in recovery for the arts, culture, and creative industries. As we know, we had been disproportionately impacted by the impact of COVID, as we are still. And at the end of the day, we got over $600 million invested into the recovery. Big dollars, the biggest we've seen here in the state. And we're really grateful to all of you working with us on that. And that was proven by how much you engaged, how many of you sent in letters, how many of you sent in emails, how many of you met with your legislators and told your stories and gave them not only what is the impact, but how we can be part of the solution to California's recovery, both from an economic standpoint and social and emotional and mental health and public health standpoint. We are a part of the wellness solution for the state of California. We also were able to get the first creative workforce bill signed into law, the California Creative Workforce Act, which I'll briefly touch on as well today. And mayors like your own Todd Gloria signed letters in support of what we were trying to achieve at the state level. And that really made a difference, because when the mayors show up and say, this makes a difference for our communities, that makes a difference at the state level. They're listening and they're watching. Next slide. Again, I just want to highlight a couple of things that we were able to achieve here with our organization on the C3 side, Californians for the Arts. One of the things that we did last year was a survey. This was really critical for us to gather the information to understand what is happening out there, both for organizations and arts workers. And out of that, we presented with the Otis report, and we were actually quoted in the New York Times as talking about that if California does not make these types of investments and do things like the California Creative Workforce Act, we could see a cultural depression here in the state of California. This is important in that these types of media relationships, getting this kind of public awareness does, again, influence what happens, what your legislators think to do and how they act. But importantly, really was how you engaged with us and helped us with campaigns like Artists Are Second Responders and Restarts Out Arts California, how you engaged with us on our Reopening the Arts Task Force, how you engaged with us during Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, which we'll mention again, and how we also work at advocacy levels to influence things like state agencies like the California Arts Council when they were only able to fund released 21% of grants were being funded. We advocated and mobilized quickly with you to get over 1,100 of you within 6 days to sign a petition saying, no, we need more money immediately out into the field. And so they did. They doubled down, and there were more dollars released, which we all know we're still waiting on, and we've been told should be coming as early February. Next slide, please. Also on the CAA side, just quickly again, I mentioned the $600 million. We also did hearings. Your Tasha Borner-Horvath will be the chair of the Assembly Committee for the Arts, as Victoria mentioned. Before that was Sharon Quirk-Silva. They did a hearing last year. It was instrumental in the informational hearing for them to understand what was happening to our sector. And it really influenced getting reopening guidelines, which we saw come out in April. And then we were able to open up in June, and we continue to see that now the state understands more of how our industry works. And so these types of actions that were entering into rooms that we had not been in before, talking about workforce development, talking about economic impact, talking about the relationship to tourism, those are the things that we continue to do at the lobbying level. Next slide.
Before you do that, can I ask a question? I've gotten several texts from people trying to get in that registered, but it says the maximum number has been reached. And if you look at the bottom there, it appears that 100 is the maximum. Eddie, is there any way we can change that so people that registered can get in?
Yeah, I've gotten that
Eddie, why
message
don't you have
too.
Tracy, Kara take that and see if she can fix that. Kara, can you see if you can fix that while I continue?
Yes.
I'm just going to continue going so we stay on track, but thank you, Vicki. That is important for us to know. All right, so next slide, if you would, because Eddie's doing the slides, it's going to be hard for him to do both. So Eddie, go ahead to the next slide and Kara will focus on that. I wanted to just give you an update. Whoops, slide 11 is what I need. All right, thanks. So many of you fought for these funding allocations last year. I wanted to give you an update on where we are currently. So the California Nonprofit Performing Arts Grants Program, which was came out of the work that we were doing with a coalition on a Senate Bill 805, which ultimately was vetoed by the governor, but was able to get into the budget for $49.5 million. And this is specifically to address the impact of AB5 on $2 million and under small budget performing arts organizations. That program has just gone out as an RFP through the California Office of Small Business Advocate and should be opening up sometime in March. Again, if you're not on our mailing list, stay tuned so you know when these things are available. There's also the California Venues Grants Program that has already opened and already shut. And they are processing those applications now. If you have applied for a California Venues Grants Program, are in limbo, aren't sure where you are supposed to, what's going on with that, or if you've received either an acceptance or decline notice, please do let us know. We are tracking that and working in advocacy with the Office of Small Business Advocate to make sure that those programs are actually reaching the people that they were intended for. Now, the Museum Grant Program is also coming up, should be coming up sometime soon from the Natural Resources Agency. That's another $50 million to help museums. And then you've got what's happening at the California Arts Council with Creative Youth Development, $40 million, and the California Creative Corps Pilot Program, which I will also give you more information on in the next slide. And it looks like we were able to increase to 500. So we should be able to see more people coming in. Hopefully that's going to work in a second. On creative youth development, I just wanted to mention, this is something that the Arts Council took the term creative youth development. There are many people in your community that have been really the champions of this, like some of our board members, Duluth Smith, and they are utilizing it to really just focus on all the youth programs that they do. And those dollars need to be expended by June 30th, 2024. Those programs include Youth Arts Action, Artists in Schools, Arts Education Exposure, Jumpstarts, and Arts Integration Training. Some of those have already opened on January 19th, and it looks like you should apply for those. Sorry, I'm getting text messages. I'm going next slide, trying to understand what's happening because it doesn't look like we're able to add in more folks yet. So Creative Corps Pilot Program is an exciting program. The governor, our organization worked on this with many people across the state to educate the governor about this and this type of activity that we can employ artists and arts organizations to help in messaging. And in this case, it's going to be around things like pandemic recovery environmental, civic, and social engagement. These grants will go to all 58 counties with an emphasis on prioritizing zip codes in the lowest quartile of the California Health Places Index, as well as with organizations that demonstrate strong engagement with Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. So that is coming up. I've also included in the deck an example of a city-based core program. There was one in San Francisco that was really served as a model for this program, so that you can get an idea of what that looks like to hire artists in relationship to these types of programs. Next slide. I wanted to just quickly talk about the California budget, because this is where this work comes in. And so the budget gets introduced in January. The governor puts his first budget out. And what he introduced this year, and this is the 4th year of Gavin Newsom being our governor, and I just have to say, we say that Gavin Newsom is a friend to the arts. Every year he has put in proactively funding for the arts. This year, really excited to see support for cultural districts, which we will talk about at the end of this program for about 45 minutes. You have an exciting panel. 30 million in one-time general fund to be spent over 3 years to not only fund the 14 pilot districts, but also to expand that program. The California Arts Council's baseline budget is $26 million. The governor has not introduced a change to the baseline budget. There's also just under $200,000 for the Poet Laureate and Youth Poet Laureate programs and literary programs for the California Arts Council. And then a new program that the governor's introduced, which is $50 million in one time for the California Department of Parks and Rec. And this is to create new California cultural and art installations in parks programs. These can be performances, they can be 3D, it can be sculptures, but it's not a monuments program. So it's really interesting. This is new. This is not with the California Arts Council. And in some ways, this is something we talk a lot about, which is arts integration. We want to see the arts in other agencies as well. So it's actually good to see us in Office of Small Business Advocate, as well as the California Arts Council, as well as the State Parks Partnership. And then there's an exciting amount, almost $1 billion in arts education that the governor's put into the budget. And this would be for after school summer enrichment programs for K through 6. We're watching that closely with our friends at Create California, who are the leading advocacy organization in the state for arts education. Next slide. Just this gives you an overview, and I'm not going to go into great detail, but where we are in the budget process. We spend a lot of time in this. I have many meetings coming up with our lobbyists to be talking to the budget subcommittee chairs. That's when we ask you to activate too, to show up and make testimony in support of what they're reviewing, things like the cultural district program. The more support that they see from the field, the more likely they are to make sure that that ends up in the final budget. We go back and forth in a lot of committee meetings in the next several months. And then in May, the governor will introduce what is called his May revise. This will be some aspects of the negotiations. At the same time, you'll see us start to work with legislators to introduce items that the governor didn't introduce, and I'll talk about those shortly. In the next slide, you'll see that by June 15th, the governor, the legislature has to pass the budget. This is actually part of California Constitution, otherwise they don't get paid. And then the governor has 12 days whether to veto or sign that bill, and there's sometimes negotiations pieces get pulled out and they want to detail that out further, and that's when you get into what we call budget trailer bills. So you can see that the budget is a long process. It's not just the governor introduces it in January and we're done. Sometimes there are early action items. The governor has introduced $1 billion for things like COVID reactions right now because of Omicron. You've seen the paid sick leave being extended now because of Omicron. So there's some things that you'll see happen very quickly in January, but for the most part, it's a prolonged process that you don't really see a passage until July. Next slide. And then I just want to also touch on what are our priorities at California Arts Advocates, what you'll be hearing about as we're moving into more engagement and advocacy. We did get the California Creative Workforce Act signed in 2021. However, it did not have an appropriation. In other words, the language was established to say that creative workforce is a priority, and then we want to do earn and learn programs to create a new pipeline for diversity and for living wage in the creative workforce. which is exciting and really critical language to see that here in the state of California. But without an appropriation, we can't have liftoff in that program. So the governor did not include it in his budget, but we will be hopefully introducing with a legislator, likely State Senator Allen, who authored this bill, an appropriation ask. And so that will start us in the budget process, and we'll ask for your support. As I mentioned, 805 was not passed by the governor. That coalition is revisiting what to do in terms of the ongoing impact of AB 5, particularly on our sector, and we will let you know where that lands. One of the things that we have seen is that the baseline budget is still $26 million for the California Arts Council. That's less than $1 per person per capita in the state. It's about 73 cents. It puts us about 24th in funding across the United States. Obviously, we believe California should and can do better, particularly with an incredible budget surplus that we're seeing. And we still say that is budget dust, right? So we want to see it get to $1. And this is also because we know that general operating support is what is most critical for our arts organizations and arts workforce to be able to sustain. These one-time projects are great, but we really need the continued funding of the $1. $30 million we're in support for cultural districts, of course, but we also want to make sure that the legislature is aware of those equity recommendations that were made in a 2019 report and hold them accountable for that. The $50 million in parks for arts installations, we will be supporting as well. We're also looking at relief and recovery funding, what could be happening there as we see the impact again of COVID that I think was unexpected for many in the arts coming this winter. And then there's also an exciting ballot measure for $800 million for arts education funding out of the general budget for actual in-school arts education funding, which we are also tracking. Our board will decide if they are in support of, and if we are, then you'll see us working very closely with Create California, Arts for LA, and others to push that, that ballot measure forward. Next slide. Trying to rush through this. I originally had to 11, so I think I'm okay still. California Creative Workforce Act is what I mentioned very quickly already, and that's something that is different from the California Creative Core pilot program. I wanted to make the distinction between those two. Core program is already in the California Arts Council. You'll see those guidelines coming out soon. The Creative Workforce Act is more of a creative pipeline, industry pipeline to diversify and create living wage opportunities for folks in the industry and people new to the industry. And that is something we are fighting for an appropriation for this year. Next slide. So also just so you know, we also work on federal advocacy. That's something that I am actually the state captain to Americans for the Arts for National Arts Action Summit. I sit on the Cultural Advocacy Group, which was a national network of people who work on cultural policy at the federal level. So if you're ever curious about what's going on there, as we know it goes federal, state, local, please do reach out as well. There are actually 7 current pieces of legislation in Congress that have been introduced regarding the creative industries. One of them is the Creative Economy Revitalization Act. 2 of our California legislators have been sponsors of this, Representative Jay Obernolte and Senator Alex Padilla. So it's got bipartisan support, and it is essentially a WPA for the 21st century with $300 million attached to that. You also see appropriations, the budget allocation for NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Both sides, Senate and the House, have introduced increases, slightly different, but they both have increases. And we're super excited that Maria Rosario Jackson is now the chair of the National Endowment for the Arts. You know, there's SFOG, which is the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. There's an extension act to extend allowable expenses from March 2020 to March 2023. So we're tracking that. Employer retention tax credits were something that they pulled out of the 4th quarter. That was really something that was really beneficial. So we're looking at how we can get that going. We're still hearing about maybe some potential COVID-19 relief again being introduced because of Omicron. That's being talked about in Congress right now for disproportionately impacted industries, everything from restaurants to the performing arts in particular. And then there was a really exciting hearing last week, the Power, Peril, and Promise of the Creative Economy in the Small Business Advocates, Small Business Committee, and Representative Judy Chu and Young Kim from California are on the committee. And out of that hearing, Representative Judy Chu has sent a letter to Isabel Guzman, who is the head of the Senate, the Small Business Administration, to insist that we get some relief, in ongoing relief funding for our sector. So you'll see more coming out of the federal updates. And if you're not, again, getting our emails, do get those, because it really does help to inform you of what's going on out there. Okay, next slide. And that's it. Oh, good. All right. I got through it. It's 11 o'clock, made it through. And this is a chance for anybody here to ask questions. I apologize. It looks like we are still having some issues entering and getting other folks into the room. You guys are just so engaged in San Diego. We're so thrilled that it means that there are more people who want to come in. Oh, there's one that left. So anybody have any questions that you want to ask of that rapid fire presentation on what's happening at the state and federal level, who we are as an organization. And of course, today will help us to learn from you what are some of the regional priorities for the arts, culture, and creative industries and workforce. So yeah, anybody got any questions, comments?
Well,
I see
yeah.
Lori.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I didn't know where to ask the questions, but I wrote them in the copy. So I also tried to call the Sacramento phone number last week, 2 weeks ago, but nobody replied to the phone message I left. So let me ask it all now. There's kind of like three fronts for me. One were the awards that were made regionally for arts, and they were given to nonprofits to partner with artists. For the last couple years, there's been these awards. So I would respond to the emails I would get from your organization, and I would go look at the grants that were available. But what I found consistently, that there was either a problem with the nonprofit not being able to qualify, like the San Diego River Park Foundation, who is very motivated if they see an opportunity, and I partnered with them over the years. They couldn't qualify. And there was an organization in LA I wanted to partner with, but because I live down here in San Diego most of the time, sometimes they establish these the criteria that kind of prohibit me. So one of the things that became clear to me, which over the many years, I've been in community arts for 30 years, and I've been an artist for 40 or 50 years. Okay, so, and I've been in business for 41 years. So one of the things that I commonly find is a problem is that nonprofit agencies have difficulties, unless they themselves are an art agency, they have difficulties when there's money on the table coordinating with an artist. And so I carry a huge amount of liability, insurances, and things to work in communities. And who I partner best with seem to be like institutional civic entities, where like there's a certain way that they go about bringing artists in under the institution of civic entities. So the community nonprofits were harder for me to find liaisons with. So I would love to see grants offered to independent artist business owners, such as like, micro grants, like $5,000. Like there was one grant that
Lori, if you could just summarize your comments and questions. It's really, really critical for us to hear it, but I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance. So if you want to just, I think
so there were grants that were given for keeping your lights on. I don't need that. I need a grant to partner with community to do work and art projects. So I would like to see grants given directly to artists that have business histories and have the insurances and have that kind of thing. And then I was asked for my pandemic unemployment assistance back, which was crazy. And I was working with Miss Bonner's office. I complained to Mr. Levin's office. And so I was just wondering if any of the other artists have had that, because I certified for all 2 years. I have my original award letter. It's just totally bizarre. And then the third thing was, what was the third thing, man? It just went out of my head. Okay, come back to me. Get everybody else and you can come back.
Okay. Thanks, Lori. Definitely include those in comments. We will address that. And then also, yeah, I saw that and we saved that. And then also, I'm going to send you information to speak directly with Jonathan Glass at the City of San Diego. I think there's some help there as well. So we're going to move on. Thank you so much for your comments. Felicia, did you have your hand up as well?
Yeah, I did. I'll be brief. I've been hearing from a lot of our constituents who support all the advocacy we've been doing to increase funding opportunities for small budget organizations who have, suffered during the pandemic. But is there anything afoot to continue to support the larger budget organizations who contribute so much to our economy? But obviously they're not our highest priority right now during the pandemic. So I'm thinking of all of those bills and initiatives. Do we have anything that even begins to talk about helping them as they struggle along during the pandemic?
Yeah, so there's a lot out there. I mean, as you know, the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant helped a lot of cultural institutions with some up to $10 million. There's talk now, as there is money left over at the federal level, I think it's $2 billion of maybe extending that. And that's sort of what they're looking at. At the state, you have the California Relief Grant Program, you have the Live Venues Program. The Live Venues Program has grants up to $250,000, and the California Relief Grant had up to $25,000. Much of what the California Arts Council is prioritizing right now is $250,000 and under organizations. And actually, when we get to some of the feedback, you'll see in our survey, we're asking you about that specifically. We completely understand the prioritization and how that is, an emphasis in terms of racial equity and opening it up to people who've not been able to receive grants prior. But we also understand that there are many very well-deserving $300,000 and $350,000 and $265,000 and up organizations. So we want to make sure that the California Arts Council also, and thankfully Vicki is here with us today, who is a council member, hears from the field what the impact of that prioritization has been in terms of who is no longer receiving funding that has traditionally received that funding, and what does that mean in terms of sustainability of our sector. So your input to that is part of how you can help us with advocacy to the Arts Council for them to hear from you directly. So.
Thank you so much for that answer, because it really helps all of us to speak with one voice instead of having a lot of scattered messages. So your response is perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We see a couple more, and I want to be respectful of time, but I also know this is why we're here, is to hear from you. So I'm going to go Victoria, and then John, and then Heiken, and then I'll hand it back to you, Tracy.
Thank you so much for this informational session. My question is, since we're a relatively new nonprofit, 2019, and living through the pandemic was the beginning of us, but we really, really would like to see if we can make a one-on-one appointment with someone at the Arts Council to explain what we do and what we might be best suited for as far as these grants. Is that kind of thing available?
The Arts Council does have people who are program officers. So if you look at, and someone maybe can link the grants that are currently open, I think there's 7 or 8 that just opened. For example, there's a Cultural Pathways grant, which is for organizations that are just starting. That's $150,000 and under organizations, that sort of thing. And then it'll say who that program officer is. So you can certainly try to reach out to that program officer and set up a meeting. I can share with you that, like many of the agencies, both in all of our world, that they are very understaffed and oversubscribed. So it might take a little while to get that one-on-one, but that's probably the best way to do it. They are also doing a webinar today on all the available grants, which I'm sure will be recorded as well. And so.
Okay, great. So as far as like, I'm just having somebody to be able to talk one-on-one with at the Arts Council, that's not currently available.
As I said, there's program officers that you could speak to or, try to make an appointment with, or absolutely that's something that they would like to try and offer. And then of course, your very own Vicki Estrada is a council member and she is here today. So I'm, you can maybe Vicki, you can put your contact information in the chat, at least an email, and Victoria, maybe you can reach out directly there as well.
Thank you. And I'm Victoria with kids. I forgot to tell everyone who I was. Thank you.
No, thank you. Hey, John, you want to join in conversation? John Hyken?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks so much, Julie. And I appreciate your holding this, and also that, as you pointed out, all the different opportunities that have been there for us over the last couple of years. So the thing I really wanted to say is that to Felicia's point about supporting the small organizations, there is $250,000 is a very arbitrary sum, and also for people who are entrepreneurs or new to have new projects, who are new to grant writing. California Arts Council grants are not an entry-level grant. There seems to be no understanding of either simplifying the grant in order to fully encourage people who may have second language issues, people who may be frightened of grants, because a lot of people are. And at the same time, then to exclude organizations who are just above that level, like I'm in the circus world, and Prescott Circus Theater in Oakland does extraordinary work, and they have gotten nothing. So many of my colleagues here in creative youth development are seeing $50,000, $60,000 drops this year. And it's frustrating. I'm frustrated. And I have to say that it's a pattern of the California Arts Council over the last 4 or 5 years of destabilizing the field by moving the way they moved the grant deadlines, constantly changed things. Part of the way that they can support artists and arts organizations is by making grants easier, making access to funding easier, and not making it more difficult. I mean, the way I'm looking at it, I'm the grant writer in our organization, and most likely we will not even be applying. I don't know if I can begin to tell you my frustration with the CAC and its management. And that's from somebody who has dealt with them for 30 years and has had great admiration for their empathy and understanding of what artists and arts organizations do. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, John, and important feedback. And I know Vicki is listening, and as well as, this helps us to inform our own advocacy as to uplift to the state agencies. And I would say, let's all work together to inform and educate. I really also believe all the intentions are there to support the field, and I think that we that's part of why we're here today. So is to listen and to understand. And without further ado, I want to hand it over to Jonathan Gless from the City of San Diego to talk a little bit about what's happening here in your community locally, and also share that how he can help with, and his department can help also with CAC grants as well, I think, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Julie. Way to power through all that information. So much going on. My name is Jonathan Gless. I'm the Executive Director of the Commission for Arts and Culture for the City of San Diego. I wear a few hats this morning. In addition to my day gig, as it were, I'm also a board member of Californians for the Arts. And most specifically, I'm here as representing the state local partner to the California Arts Council. Many of you know that the City of San Diego has for many decades had the responsibility of being state local partner to the CAC. So I just wanted to very quickly give you a few updates on how we are advancing arts and culture here in the San Diego region. One is just to remind everyone of all of the alliances and networks that we have already in place in San Diego County. So in addition to the city of San Diego and the 6 other cities in the county that have local arts agencies, which I hope if you don't live in the city of San Diego and you live in Coronado or you live in Carlsbad or certainly Oceanside, Chula Vista, that you know your colleagues at the city. Excuse me. In addition to that, the LAAs throughout the county, we also have a number of network organizations. San Diego Museum Council, the Performing Arts League, Creative Youth Development Network are some of the discipline-specific networks. If you're not familiar with them, please go online and make sure that you're aware of all of the terrific work that they're doing. I want to give a shout out to San Diego Museum Council, who's represented it at the meeting today. February is Museum Month in San Diego County, and that's led by the San Diego Museum Council, and they just do extraordinary work in raising the visibility, but also lowering barriers to our museums, working in partnership with our libraries. So please check that out in the next few days. Also, Patricia Fisher, I'm getting there. Patricia Fisher, longtime leader of Visual Arts Network, and that includes the Art Prize, which is one of our most important annual recognitions here in the county. And then finally, NCAN and SCAN, North County Arts Network, South County Arts Network, have a regional focus since our county is so very large. So if you don't know your colleagues, but you reside in South County or North County, please find them on the web, and they will, they're a great network to know what's going on really at the local level in our communities. And all of this is happening in partnership with SDRAC, our countywide arts advocacy leadership organization. So there is so much going on. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. So please reach out to any of us that are on the board of either SDRAC or Californians for the Arts, and we can make sure that you're connected in the right way. Also wanted just to quickly let you know, as the SLP for San Diego County, we will be launching in about 6 weeks a series of technical assistance workshops. These workshops will be county-wide with a particular focus on grant writing and contract management for the City of San Diego, the County of San Diego, and CAC. This is the first time in recent history that we've done this kind of a county-wide initiative. We're doing that because there is so much money coming down the pike. And in particular, we want to make sure that areas of the county that are historically receive less public arts funding are fully tooled up and prepared for the opportunities. So we will be focusing on East County communities of concern and BIPOC serving and representing organizations, which includes our indigenous communities here in San Diego. So I will put an address in the chat if you are not on our newsletter. We want to make sure you're aware of it. Then finally, Arts and Economic Impact Study. There is a large effort to work countywide to gather the data for the Americans for the Arts and Economic Impact Study that happens every 5 years. What's important about this is that data is used nationally, regionally, and locally by policymakers, researchers, advocacy leaders, and elected officials. 6 local arts agencies in the county and 3 cultural districts, actually that's 4 cultural districts, will be participating. But we need a lot of volunteers to make this work. So please contact us if you would like more information. And finally, just a quick update on the county. Many of you know that the County of San Diego is very invested in standing up or establishing an Office of Arts and Culture, as well as an Arts Commission. The staff at the county are right now creating a work plan and a budget, which will be moving forward to the county executive over the spring. Possible establishing the office as early as next fiscal year. So please stay tuned. A lot of advocacy will be necessary for that. And SDRAC is the go-to for that. And Julie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I know that Jonathan and his team will probably add information in the chat there for how to reach him. And I'm going to turn it over to Eduardo Robles from our team to introduce what we're going to do next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. So we've gotten to the point where we're going to do a regional conversations poll. This survey has a couple of questions to kind of, so we can feel the needs of the sector across the state. So this is going to inform a lot of our kind of policy work and how we develop our programs and how we communicate with our audience. So if you can please, take some time to really think thoughtfully and answer thoughtfully. I mean, if you can take 5 to 10 minutes to start the poll, you can come back to it and finish it. But the info is really important to us. So we're going to come back to evaluate it and see what we disseminate from that analysis. So please take your time and submit it. Thank you so much. And the link is being dropped in the chat box. And I'll see you in a little bit, in 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Can you please try to wrap it up and come back to it later to complete it? That would be much appreciated. Thank you so much.
All right, do you want to advance us to the next slide? We'll keep this party going here. We're going to actually skip that because we want to, we're going to skip that slide. We're going to go to 25. We want to get to that really awesome cultural districts panel that's been created here for you today. So I just want to quickly mention again that we do in April an activity called Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month. It is a statewide way to engage all of the arts, culture, and creative industries and workforce to come together to celebrate and to recognize the value and impact of what we do for the state. If you sign up, again, you'll learn more about how you can engage during that month. We'll be doing, if we go to the next slide, this year's theme is called The Arts Work. And on March 25th, we'll do a kickoff webinar where you can learn more about how to engage. You'll get toolkits and a training. And then every Friday in April, we'll be doing webinars on weekly topics around arts and health and healing, artists or second responders, arts and jobs, things that give you practical information as well as inspiration. And then April 25 through 29, we will be doing Advocacy Week, where you can engage, likely virtually this year again, with your elected officials. You'll have state captains from our board, people like Victoria Hamilton and others that are here. And then if it's allowable and you can fly up, you're welcome to join us on April 27th for in-person Advocacy Day in Sacramento. Next slide. I also, many of you might remember me from coming to San Diego several years ago to do a presentation on AB5. We are producing a webinar that's coming up next week with our friends at the Theater Producers League of Southern California and with a really fabulous speaker, Mark Bookman. And so that is available. It's $20 if you're not a member of either organization, or free for our members. And our next slide. We'll just give you a quick plug for membership with our organization. It really does make a huge difference for us to be able to do all the things that we do and to have the capacity to serve a state as large as California. You can join as an individual to Californians for the Arts, or you can join as an organization to California Arts Advocates. And while we're here, I just wanted to also acknowledge Tara Gravis-White, who's here with us. Tara, I think you're still here if you want to wave hello. Tara has been an invaluable team member for Californians for the Arts this last year as someone who has helped with the California Relief Grant and the Live Venues Grant Program, both doing technical assistance and community outreach for that grant program. So thanks, Tara. And then we're really excited to have with us Claremont Graduate University fellow, Zuriel Ortiz, who's here today. He's just started today. So welcome, Zuriel. He'll be working with our marketing and communications. And we thank, of course, all of our members and our funders for the ability to do this work. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to now hand it back to Tracy, and we'll get into the Cultural Districts panel. Really excited to hear about that.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone. And just as an update to the technical issue, sorry we were not able to solve it while the meeting was in process. We will be sending out by the end of the day a recording to all the registrants, as well as the slide deck and our personal contact information in the event that you didn't get to share items that you wanted to in the meeting, and also for the folks that were not able to get in. And again, we apologize. San Diego, you had over 220 registrants. It's an amazing turnout, and so hats off to you for that. And again, apologies. We'll follow up. And I'm very excited to introduce CJ Demento. When we first conceived of the regional conversation happening in San Diego, right away she said, we can host it at the Oceanside Library Community Room. She went ahead and organized tours for us, in-person tours of the Oceanside Cultural District and the museum, etc. She's been an invaluable partner in creating this event. And she's also the executive committee member for the Oceanside California Cultural District. And CJ, I invite you to introduce, to kick off our panel and introduce Vicki for us, Vicki Estrada.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tracy, for that introduction. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our moderator this morning. Vicki Estrada is president of Estrada Land Planning, and she has 47 years of public and private practice experience. She's been a registered landscape architect in California since 1977 and with a BS in landscape architecture. Her experience includes land planning, urban design, and landscape architecture for a variety of projects, including community planning, master planned communities, infill parks and streetscapes, and her volunteer experience includes many nonprofit boards and councils. Vicki.
My turn. Okay, so what we're going to do first, remembering that the topic today is to path forward. Californians for the Arts has assembled these four people that I'm about to introduce. We're going to have a great conversation, and then we'll ask questions afterwards. Each of the people I'm going to introduce will have a chance after I introduce them to do a little presentation. So first, as was mentioned, CJ Demento is a library division manager of Oceanside Public Library and on the executive committee for the Oceanside Cultural District. Next, we're going to have Rachel Lostimosa. She's an interdisciplinary artist, producer, and a performer, and she scores for theaters and film and has toured nationally and internationally as a performing musician. Since 2017, she has served as the Arts and Culture Administrator with SOMA Filipinas, the San Francisco Filipino Cultural Heritage District. In 2018, she founded Agasan, the Acts of Self-Preservation. She utilizes sound, movement, and visual arts as an integrative wellness practice for LGBTQIA+ and communities of color. Next, we're going to have Marisa Gassani, and she's local here, manager of the Barrio Logan Association. She has over 15 years experience working with San Diego's youth and young adults. She began her career at Urban Core in 2014. She has a dual role as district manager for Barrio Logan Maintenance Association District, and she's the chief operating officer. And this has allowed her to showcase her leadership, administration, and management skills with her passion for youth and program development and community service. In addition to managing contracts and grants, supervising staff, and working with core members, Marisa has worked very closely with state and local legislators to improve the lives of the youth and communities of San Diego, and has been personally recognized multiple times for work at Urban Core. Finally, we have Peter Kaminsky. He's an Australian native. He enjoys bringing diverse stakeholders together around common interests. Since 2013, he has served as the executive director of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, an organization dedicated to the notion of one park, one team collaboration and advocacy for Balboa Park cultural organizations. After celebrating Balboa Park becoming one of the 14 pilot village cultural districts, Kaminsky collaborated with the other pilot California cultural districts to form the California Cultural Districts Coalition. So next slide, please. So this is a map of where the cultural districts are located. I'm going to go very quickly here because we're a little bit behind schedule. I want to make sure we have time to have some great back and forth with questions. So just very brief summary. So if some of you may not know, well, how did this happen? How did we end up with cultural districts? So Assembly Bill 189 was authored by Assembly Member Richard Bloom and co-authored by Assemblywoman Maria Waldron. Now, that charged the California Arts Council with establishing criteria and guidelines for state designated cultural districts with the following components of a public program. Number one, establish a competitive application system by which a community may apply for certification as a state designated district. Number two, provide technical assistance for state designated cultural districts. Number three, collaborate with other public agencies and private entities to maximize the benefits of cultural districts. Now, the program really started in June 2016. In September, October of 2016, there were 5 public meetings throughout the state to get some input. The council, the CAC, approved it in December 2016, and in January of 2017, there was an open call for applications. The letters of interest were submitted, and there were site visits done. And finally, in June of 2017, the finalists were invited to submit applications. The council reviewed the applications, and then in July 2017, that was the official announcement of the cultural districts. So very quickly, I'm just going to list what they are. Balboa Park Cultural District, Barrio Locan Cultural District, the Boulevard Cultural District, Calle 24 Latino Cultural District, Rotten City Emeryville Cultural Arts District, the Eureka Cultural Arts District, Grass Valley, Nevada Cultural District, Little Tokyo, and LA Oceanside Cultural District, Redding Cultural District, San Pedro Arts and Culture District, the Downtown San Rafael Arts District, Soma, as you're going to hear about more in a little bit, and the Truckee Cultural District. So first up, I want to go ahead and introduce CJ, who's got some videos. We're going to talk a little bit about Oceanside. CJ, your show, please.
All right, thank you. So I think you're first going to see the video.
Oceanside's emerging California Cultural District.
Oceanside was selected as one of the first 14 cultural districts in the state of California.
We've been championing the art of Southern California for the entire cultural community to celebrate.
The creatives, the artists, the artisans that exist here and do amazing work, it's really incredible.
Oceanside sees the value in creating cultural spaces while promoting a sense of place for both locals and visitors alike.
All right, so first of all, we would have loved to have had you guys here in Oceanside with us, meeting the people, walking the district, feeling how the designation has really brought us together here through some amazing collective work and a great deal of community pride, but we're going to do it soon, I promise. That video was done by our local television station right after the designation. Like I said, a lot of pride about the designation, and they helped us to create that amongst other collateral to be able to present the district. So this is a very unique district. This came about when we heard about the pilot program. Really, there was not something in existence prior to that. When the California Arts Council was tasked with creating districts, we thought, you know what, we got to go for this. We got to go for this. Our city does not have an arts department, although we're working on that. We do have an amazing library. We have a volunteer arts commission and some incredible partners, the Oceanside Museum of Art, Main Street Oceanside, Visit Oceanside. These entities have really brought some great depth and strength to the district because they come from such different perspectives. We do have a steering committee of 14 that includes artists, arts organizations. We have a city planner. We have our economic development manager, our Osider magazine. We have community builders, our historical society, chamber reps, and we just really work very collectively. We're all volunteering. We're all doing this kind of outside of our original scope, but we're all devoted to applying for grants, working with the local school district, supporting collaborative community programming, increased visibility. We have 2 historic theaters. We have amazing museums. We have the Museum of Art. We have the California Surf Museum, and lots of arts organizations and practicing artists. We've really been working the last few years to create the district as an entity, to have a brand book, to have a website, to get our Caltrans signage, which was a major win. The designation, however, really helped us to spur our city's first cultural plan. It really was the driver behind us creating the OArts Master Plan for the Arts, which is guiding our city in keeping it as a place where artists, organizations can survive, can thrive. We do amazing projects. One of the funnest we did last year, we commissioned local artist, songwriter and singer Shane Hall, who's in the middle of your screen here, to write a love song for our community. So he wrote The O, which, look it up, it's amazing. And it's a love song that the district brought to their community. We really feel like the designation has brought incredible value in terms of respect for our arts community, for awareness. It's resulted in our civic and community leaders really recognizing the value of these folks in our communities, of their organizations, the hard work that they do day in and day out to make this place so special.
Thank you, CJ. And having toured the district just a few weeks ago, very impressive. What you have done in a short period of time is just great. Now, you are going to have a chance to ask her questions after we're through. So, if you have questions, start thinking about them and we can put them in the chat later. So next, I'd like to introduce Rachel. Rachel, you're on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Lostimosa, she, they, sha. And just to let you know, I was born and raised in Chula Vista and it's almost lunchtime. So if anyone is near Lolitas, please have a burrito for me. Thank you to CFTA and California Arts Advocates and Victoria for having us. We are occupying unceded Ramaytush land in Yalamu. The cultural district spans 1.5 square miles and honors over 120 plus years of history of Filipinos in San Francisco. We celebrate the community's living legacy of making home, celebrating culture, and building community, fighting for economic and racial justice in a rapidly gentrifying South of Market neighborhood, and working in solidarity with other San Francisco cultural districts and also with California Arts Council cultural districts, and with other Filipino groups. Soma Pilipinas is inspired by the spirit of bayanihan, and that's the fighting spirit of the community. Soma Pilipinas is proud to be a community in action and a grassroots movement carrying on the legacy of Filipinos fighting for recognition and racial equity. Next slide, please, Eddie. In 2016, the city of San Francisco officially recognized Soma Pilipinas as San Francisco's Filipino Cultural Heritage District, and under the leadership of Filipino American Development Foundation. And in 2017, Soma Pilipinas was one of the first selected cultural districts for state designation by the California Arts Council. And in 2018, we received the prestigious National Endowment for the Arts, Our Town Grant for creative placekeeping. Since then, Soma Pilipinas has gone to earn numerous accolades and honors for their work in the South of Market. Oh, Eddie, could you please yeah, thanks, keep it right there, thank you. For their work in South of Market neighborhood from 2020, YBCA 100 Honoree and Architects International Association, SF for Revitalization. Next slide, please. You can go ahead and, oh, okay, I see it, thanks. So this is our cultural district map here, which you can see has a number of community landmarks and community-based organizations, businesses, also assets outside of the district boundaries. We are located from Market to Brannan and from 2nd Street to 11th Street, and that's the second largest cultural district in the city. Next slide, please. So here is a slide of our mission. It's really cultural celebration, community development, and economic and racial justice. 80% of San Francisco's development happens in District 6, where our cultural district resides. And so if you can imagine the frequency of like gentrification and issues around equity are extremely prevalent in our cultural district. Also per capita, we have the least amount of open space. So those are some of the things that we are really, fighting against. And I'll speak more to that in our panel discussion. Next slide, please. And these are some of the programs that speak to the range and reach of our work. We're a cultural hub for the Filipino American community in the region, and I would also say nationally. The Soma Pilipinas is home to many cultural institutions. Some of them are the only ones of their kind in the nation, like Bindle Stiff having a black box theater dedicated to Filipino arts. We must continue to uplift and pass down Filipino history, heritage, and arts, and create channels for learning and documenting the community's history and contributions locally, regionally, and nationally. Our history is especially pertinent to impart to youth and future generations as they carry forward the community's history and legacy into the future, which is something that we're featuring in our ethnic resident
Uh-oh. Rachel froze up. Rachel, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
You just came back.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide, please. And it's a wrap. Feel free to visit our website and our district in person, sign up on our mailing list, and learn about our initiatives and donate at somafilipinas.org.
Thanks, Rachel. I can tell you next time I'm in San Francisco, which might be in a couple of months, I definitely will, contact you to kind of get a tour just to see what's going on, if that's okay. Great. So from San Francisco to Barrio Logan, Marisa.
Thank you, Vicky. I want to thank you guys all for this beautiful, fellowship, just getting all of this together. It's a beautiful thing to see so many artists and so many people working together to move this forward. So yes, Barrio Logan Cultural District. So from historic beginnings in the latter part of the 19th century to the vibrant mix of uses and people who reside and work in Barrio Logan, the neighborhood has played a vital role in the city's development. Barrio Logan is one of the most culturally rich urban neighborhoods in San Diego, home to district's crown jewel Chicano Park. This hidden gem is known for its grassroots display of art and culture, a collection of galleries and collective artist workspaces. The park is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places, and it's an iconic, I'm just getting over a cold, so I guess the cold is affecting my ability to read my presentation. I'm sorry. The historic places, and it's an iconic destination where visitors can explore Chicano history and one of the largest collections of public murals in Northern California. The art community in Barrio Logan has taken a nod from the Chicano Park and is home to numerous artist collectives, galleries, and events, including the monthly Barrio Art Crawl and the weekly Walk the Block. Barrio Logan community is a living example of the change and evolution that have come continuously shaped the area's cultural heritage, development patterns, economic opportunities, and social and home to thriving artists. A stretch of Logan Avenue just east of the park between Sampson and South Evans Street have become a nucleus for the scene in the last 5 years, with a large concentration of galleries, studios, restaurants, cafes, and breweries, which showcase local art and collaborative live workspace. San Diego art aficionados have long followed the art scene in Barrio Logan, that its community has always seen a natural ebb and flow of activity. Local arts and cultural writers take note when artists, art collectives, and events pop up and disappear here. The last 5 years has most certainly witnessed a resurgence. So these slides that you have seen here are pretty much a lot of the events that happen within our community. As you can see, it's definitely rich in culture, it's vibrant, it's bright, but with a lot of that brightness, Vicky, there's your gateway sign you were a part of.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So with a lot of that history, with a lot of that rich culture, there's also been a lot of, how do I put this? A lot of environmental racism that has happened in Barrio Logan and surrounding communities. So it's a daily struggle to preserve this culture, to protect the residents from gentrification, from displacement, and also to fight for policy change for all the environmental, racism that Barrio Logan goes through. So I think what makes me most proud to represent this community and this cultural district is the fact that people have the same goal in mind, to really protect this community from all of those things, from all of those barriers, and to push forward and to continue to work the land. I always see it like that. And I always reference, like the farm workers working their crops, like Barrio Logan, the people live there, they work there, they grow there, they thrive there. So I'm very proud to present this to you guys, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Marisa, and I'm sure we'll have some afterwards. Great job, and balancing between two jobs like that, and amazing work. And finally, a place near and dear to my heart, Balboa Park. Peter.
Thank you, Vicky, and good afternoon. As you listen to the presentations today and likely snooze through mine, I ask you to remember two specific things. First, the California cultural districts are extremely broad in scope and diverse in nature. I think you've heard that already, with some focused on community protection and community building, some on economic development or tourism, and some focused on engaging artists and more. This is a good thing and must be celebrated. No one program fits all districts. Second, there are many gaps and additional districts must be identified, as Victoria mentioned and Julie mentioned, and to ensure that representation of as many yet unrecognized communities and cultures within this program. You can help each one of us and yourselves by encouraging Governor Newsom to ensure his proposed budget retains the stated funding for the California Cultural District program. Okay, off my soapbox for now. Let's move to Balboa Park. Next slide, please. The majority of the infrastructure in the park was temporary. Think building decorations made from plaster and light fixtures made from cardboard and created for the 1915 and 1935 expositions. Balboa Park is the unceded ancestral homelands of the Kumeyaay Nation. Creating then City Park ejected Native Americans from their lands, an horrendous action which is yet to be redressed. Eventually, after the expositions, many buildings were rebuilt into the permanent structures they are. And now, next slide, please. There are over 120 non-profit organizations operating in the 1,200 acres of Balboa Park. This image shows us a few of those organizations. Next slide, please. The Balboa Park Cultural District is just one of the 14 pilot cultural districts, as we heard. This state program has exceptional and yet untapped potential as it requires partnerships between the municipality, community, and artists. Next slide, please. As the lead for this effort in Balboa Park, the Cultural Partnership represents 26 organizations, including the zoo, 17 museums, youth arts education, and performing arts venues. Next slide, please. There is so much I could talk about, but instead, I wanted to share with you what probably the most exciting element of the work of the Cultural Partnership at the moment. Just yesterday, two experienced design firms with extensive and expensive international culture and destination experience made their final presentations, and one will be selected to undertake a major project to create an elevated experience plan for Balboa Park. Next slide, please. It's important that everyone from transporter community that is San Diego, Tijuana feels welcome and engaged in Balboa Park. And to that extent, this has not clearly always been the case, even today. Of course, it would be foolish to undertake this effort without extensive engagement with the community. So the Cultural Partnership has recently recruited a 31-person advisory board with the sole goal of ensuring breadth of engagement for the region and representation from as diverse a range of participants as could be identified. Thus far in their work guiding the development of the RFP and narrowing down finalists, the impact has been stellar. Last slide, please. I'm so thankful that the cultural districts here today and the remaining districts around the state have been engaged in the coalition called the California Cultural Districts Coalition. Okay, so finally, remember those two things I mentioned at the start. Existing cultural districts are extremely broad in scope and diverse in nature. This needs to be celebrated. And as a community, we need to support the designation of additional districts and the funding to support the operations for all. Thank you very much, Vicky.
Thank you, Peter. And what we're going to do now is, see, it's 5 minutes to 12. We're scheduled to end at 12:15, but I would like to keep going till 12:30, and those of you who have to drop off, fine. So if it's okay, gang, I would like to extend that time because I think we're going to have more questions than we're going to be able to answer in the next 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, first off, I'm going to ask the panelists some questions to get started. If you have questions, rather than what we did earlier and raise your hand, because we have so many panelists, I would like you to write your question in the chat. I will monitor those questions, and I may kind of combine the one or two questions that are similar and ask them accordingly. So I'm going to, panelists, I'm going to move around the questions a little bit based on your presentation. So to start, kind of a big picture item, and I'm going to start with Marisa. I'm going to ask you, 5 years from now, what's your vision? What's the district going to be like in 5 years?
With the Barrio Logan Community Plan update, with that recent change, I hope to see Barrio Logan community gain respect in the sense of not being, in essence, a dumping ground for facilities that the city doesn't want to place somewhere else. Those facilities really continue to impact that community. It really, I'm just trying to be very polite. It really, it provides a lot of damage to the people who live, work, and breathe the air in Barrio Logan. So my hope in the next 5 years is that we all work together to uphold what's in this community plan to ensure that the community gets that respect that other communities receive, that it's no longer a dumping ground for homeless centers and food halls and storage centers. And I promise I don't want to sound insensitive, but when it's condensed in a 1 mile radius, recycling centers and storage facilities, it does a lot. And on top of that, we're next to the port, so the air quality is not that great already. So my hope is to see that change and to see Barrio Logan continue to thrive and preserve what's there left of its culture.
Okay, thanks, Marisa. And having worked on a community plan update, I'm well aware of those issues, and whatever I can do to help, I would pledge my time for that. I'm going to ask the same question of CJ up in Oceanside. CJ, 5 years from now, what are we going to be looking at when we walk through your district?
Well, I think there's lots of things that come to mind. Right before COVID hit, we created an Oceanside Culture Festival. So providing opportunities for our local artists to have visibility, whether singers or photographers or paint. I mean, it was going to be a really all-inclusive event. So we want to have that in person. We want to have greater bandwidth to be able to pull off all of these cultural festivals that are already happening in Oceanside. But supporting those organizations so that they can be in the black at the end of the day.
Perfect. Thank you. The same question to Peter.
I think from a challenge perspective for us, it's a matter for, I don't think Balboa Park has historically necessarily represented arts and culture throughout San Diego County, and I don't necessarily think that the cultural partnership is within the county as much as it should be. And I think those are the elements that we see the cultural district really elevating and in an ongoing way that simply haven't been addressed adequately before.
Okay, good point, because it's not just about design and planning, it's about programming, which you're a big part of. So good.
And design and planning too. And I think it's actually a design question more than anything, Vicky.
Yeah, but they kind of work hand in hand. So let's head up north. Rachel.
Thanks for the question and for all the panelist answers. I do have a vision statement that I read. Hopefully I don't cry when I read it. So success in our district would mean thriving businesses and nonprofit organizations in our community, decreasing the income disparity and stable housing for families, elders, students, and adults. Our working class community, newcomers, artists, and teachers wouldn't have to fear displacement, and we would be able to purchase homes in the city and build equity. The kids at Bessie Carmichael, the only public school in the district, would all have stable homes, not living in cars or doubled or tripled up in studio apartments. The suicide ideation rate in Filipino students would go from off the charts to non-existent. We'd have access to human social services with language accommodations to navigate easily through our systems. We'd have lots of green space, sunny open space to be active in, healthy food choices and healthy air quality, safe well-lit streets filled with murals and public art. Soma Pilipinas will be a destination for visitors from the world over. We'd have access to an abundant amount of resources to actuate our dreams. That includes a world-class performing arts center to share and teach our culture, and languages with space to rehearse, studios to create, technology, and the know-how to be competitive in multiple disciplines. We'd have access and program spaces where we once felt unwelcomed. We'd be recognized and celebrated for our contributions to the city, state, and nation. And we'd have a seat at any table that was of interest and be valued and welcomed to it.
Wow, Rachel, you almost made me cry, but you didn't cry. So that's very, very great answer to that question. You obviously put some great thought into that. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. As you heard earlier, the governor has set aside, hopefully, $30 million that was placed in the draft budget for the Cultural Arts District. We, as the CAC, we're going to be responsible to kind of allocate those $30 million, you know, who gets what. We need criteria. How do we decide where that money goes? So the question is, what criteria do you think the CAC should use to equitably distribute the money? I'm going to start with Peter on that question. Peter?
I think we've heard, Vicky, that clearly there's a need to identify the many gaps in representation currently of the cultural districts and really bring those forward. And to CJ's point, to also provide some, you know, rock solid technical advice for those districts, because we also need to grow capacity, not just in these new districts, but also the ones that exist. But I think I would leave you with from my perspective, because each of these cultural districts are so different, and because it's really not the goal to create a unified program, I would very much encourage, in addition to that recognition and growth of all of the districts, I would very much encourage some type of work plan approach where the cultural districts ultimately identify what is success to them, because they're the people delivering that project in their communities, and being feet held to the fire for delivering that project, rather than something new that might be maybe not as much of a fit.
Okay, you've given that answer some thought. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask the same question to Rachel. What criteria do you think the CAC should use to equitably distribute the money?
Thank you for that. And also echoing from Peter's comment and answer, you know, in San Francisco, what we're implementing with the cultural district program here is called CHESS, the Cultural Housing Heritage Economic Sustainability Strategy, where cultural districts have outlined their own self-determined strategies to stabilize their communities. And for us, I did want to give a shout out to Ron Moreira, who was a consultant to help draft our CHESS document, and is also the board president of CFTA. So on top of just basic general operating support and ongoing funding for operations and capacity building to support sustainability of all cultural districts, within our CHESS, we really had focus on cultural preservation, arts and culture, art sustainability, public art, and urban design. And some of those strategies are an archive and living legacy, expanding access to Filipino arts education and programming, teaching Filipino languages, history and culture, art sustainability, public art and urban design, strengthening and stabilizing the capacity of Filipino arts and cultural organizations and individuals, developing a Soma Pilipinas arts master plan, create Soma Pilipinas special area design guidelines, and city and state support for cultural district public realm improvements, maintenance and neighborhood cleaning and beautification, and development of cultural conservator. You know, it's been a challenge navigating, you know, just the needs of our community as it relates to certain state departments. Like, for example, you know, wanting to get a sign painted up that you're in Soma Pilipinas is really difficult from a Caltrans perspective, because there's a lot of limitations. So, having support in those sort of technical things, but also building genuine partnership between state agencies. And I think California Arts Council can really be a steward in that process.
Good. You've given that obviously a lot of thought as well. Marisa, criteria.
Thank you guys. I definitely echo both Peter and Rachel. It seems like, Rachel, we face the same challenges, you in your district and me in mine, in regards to needing that definite individual support. But also I think for us, it's support, maybe using that funding to support artists individually, whether it would be to provide we've talked a lot about providing actual live-in work studios, individual grants funding for artists within the community, and maybe partnering with the museum that should be in place hopefully by next year, to really provide a place for artists to showcase their talent, but also to have, with all the COVID and all these people struggling to really make a living, to provide a place where we can assist them to make money, to sell their art, to showcase their art, to brand to help them market their business. I mean, we really want to get into the infrastructure of helping the artists within the community. So maybe individualized plans that we can have, like help each individual person.
Okay, thank you. And finally, let's go up north a wee bit to CJ.
Yeah, I agree. I think Oceanside's a little bit unique in that it's a smaller city, so it doesn't have that strong connection to the city of San Diego and the other county-based districts. I think the ability for involvement in Oceanside is immense, but the challenges to implement these larger scale initiatives for change are really challenging. I think, we've come a long way here locally, working on, percentages for art in some of our local policies. But the idea of creating a work plan for the designation just makes so much sense, in that it does hold our feet to the fire. It does help us to bring these initiatives to our local electives and get their support to implement them.
Thank you, CJ. Switching gears a little bit again, you've all briefly talked about this, but did the state designation really help you reach your goals and vision? I know, CJ, you talked a lot about that a little bit, that it helped kind of galvanize and bring things together. But how does a cultural district benefit the community and economic development? I'm going to start with Marisa on that one.
I'm so sorry, Vicky. I was reading one of the questions that was on the chat. Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to do the same thing. I understand what you're doing.
Sorry.
So the question is did the state designation help you to reach your goals and vision? Kind of bring things all together. And how does a cultural district benefit the community and economic development? Talk about that a little bit, please.
So yes, I think it has created it has helped us, I guess, all come together and work collaboratively for one goal. It has helped market and brand our district. It has really, not that we weren't on the map before, but I believe it has unified the community for a long time. And even still, Barrio Logan, we are made up of a lot of very passionate people. And I think this cultural designation really unified a lot of different organizations and a lot of different groups to kind of focus on the same vision, to help us all work together and advocate for the community opposed to advocate for individual things. So I think the designation has definitely unified our community as a whole, but also has helped us all to work not that they haven't before, but helped us all work closely to ensure that policy change happens for the betterment of the community. So we're all working together. For example, I'm just going to use one person. Josephine Talamantes sits on the Barrio Logan Association, which is the advisory group for the Maintenance Assessment District, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like a HOA for property owners, and then they have a say as to how their budget is spent. So she sits there, she sits on the planning group, she sits on the Chicano Park Steering Committee, and she's gonna, I believe, is the executive director of the Chicano Park Museum. So there's many Josie Talamanteses in our community who advocate for many different groups. And what this designation did was kind of bring all of those leaders together to work as a whole. So it's really helped us in that sense.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Peter. I know you're giving this some thought as well. How did the state designation change your organization in Balboa Park?
I think, Vicky, if it can be so bold for a second, because I've had an opportunity to visit a number of the cultural districts, and what I see throughout is it's the collaboration, and almost a forced collaboration, between city and artists and other cultural groups and business that actually makes the strength of these. And second is that it provides an ability, and Balboa Park certainly counts this, provides an ability to hyper-focus the needs of that arts and culture community in that area, which I actually look forward to the future. It's been great for us to date. I look forward to the future where the cultural districts are really a super strong network, and we're learning off each other, where this is just going to be an exceptional designation. I really look forward to that.
Perfect. Thank you. CJ. You want me to reread the question? How did it help you reach your goals and vision? And how does the cultural district benefit the community and economic development?
Thank you so much. You know, Oceanside being unique, we didn't have any goals when we first started. So we put in an incredible amount of energy into creating those action steps. Some of them involve programming, and some are more focused on policies. I would say when I first went in to talk about this cultural district designation to my local electeds, I heard, I don't know anything about arts. And now those are the same people that are talking about the importance of arts in our community. You know, our Chamber of Commerce has really embraced this cultural district and provided numerous opportunities for us to be able to connect on a, you know, on a business level. It really has opened doors for us here in Oceanside that were not open. And we're really looking forward to being a big part of the Americans for the Arts Economic Impact Study coming up, you know, on board to really create those arguments for these cultural districts and the power that they can bring to a community.
Perfect. And finally, San Francisco.
Yes, it has been very beneficial. There was a slide earlier in my presentation that showed pole banners from Soma Pilipinas, and we were able to do that because of California cultural district programming, and we just put up a new set of banners this year. So in visibility, it's been very helpful, and being part of this pilot program, we've been able to be part of the Cultural District Coalition that Peter was talking about to advocate for additional support. And like a lot of what other folks are saying, it's like really building those relationships with other cultural districts. I remember being able to sit on a panel with Little Tokyo and just talk about a lot of similarities that our communities are facing. And, you know, I saw a comment in the chat about, you know, our ability as a cultural district to support the arts ecosystem as a whole, including individual artists. And, you know, some of the work that I've personally been doing is really building the capacity of individual artists and emerging artists to level up and, you know, apply for those grants and really solidify their portfolios and level up to the point where they can also pass that information down to the next generation. And so as we are able to build our own capacity as a cultural district, we're also able to build the capacity of the community that we support. So, you know, having just spent our 5-year anniversary, being able to do more like self-defense workshops and panel discussions and artist circles. We previewed our proposal for gateway designs and are commissioning artists, and continue our traditions and our festivals. And, you know, that sort of thing really needs a lot of support, not only on a city, but also state level. And can you imagine what it would be like for us to just like, you know, tour and visit each other's districts and festivals and events, and how rich, you know, that could make our state, and also, you know, it generates so much income.
Perfect, thank you. I want to let the chat questions, give them a chance to be answered, but also want to let you know that all the questions are being captured, and we may not be able to get to all the answers of all the questions, and maybe you know, we will share the questions, and then maybe each of us can respond, because I noticed there's a lot of comments as well, not just questions. So this question was directed to Peter, but I think it involves kind of every, you know, all the organizations. You know, you each have a board or an advisory panel. So Peter, you first specifically, how did you find and how did you invite the candidates for your diverse advisory panel? You showed that great slide and it was clear that it's quite a diverse panel. How'd you do that?
With the wonderful advice of one of my team members who looks after Balboa Park, has something called IDEA, the IDEA group, which is basically DEI work. With her great advice, we went to organizations throughout the county and asked for recommendations. We went to our council members, we looked at awards, and what was always important is we actually had a list of, you know, as diverse characteristics as we could believe, as diverse identities as we could think of, and then were very open when people expressed that need. We certainly want to make sure we had expression from the Mexican side of the border. We want to make sure we had Kumeyaay representation, but everything from personal identity to the work. So we just tried to find those people. We're kind of at capacity at the moment, but we are still out there looking and seeking to have that more and more diverse. I replied back before, and one of the most important things I think for cultural organizations is diversity really lacks on many boards, and that serves as a big detractor for cultural arts organizations, and I think is something that will become a key topic in moving forward.
Okay, Tracy, you have your hand up before we continue with the other questions. Did you have some a comment?
No, just that we were capturing the questions in the chat. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry, I already said that. Okay, so the same question then. CJ, can you talk about Oceanside? I mean, do you advisory council board? If you don't have one now, how are you going to get the members?
Yeah, like I said, we have a 14-member steering committee right now. When we first started this this district, we knew that we needed really diverse representation. Although at that time, to be perfectly honest, we were thinking of people like bankers and hoteliers. And 5 years, things have really drastically changed in our thoughts about that and in our intentions. So we are much more focused not on those types of entities, but really having our diverse communities at the table. You know, are we meeting at a time when it works for everyone in the community to be involved? Are we doing what we can? And Mr. Robert Parker has just been such a great support with this. Are we getting the word out to the artists? Do they know what's happening? Do they know that there's potential to be involved in these initiatives? Or are we not doing what it takes for them to be aware, to be involved? Are we not doing enough professional development, enough grant support? So those are the initiatives we really want to take on in this next year of designation.
Perfect, thank you. Can you talk about that as well, Rachel, up in San Francisco?
Certainly. You know, when we first started out, it was kind of by committee based on like different constituents and constituent groupings. But after going through our chess process, we recognized the need for redoing our governance and hired consultants, Amy Espiritu and Nelson Layag, to engage our community for about a year-long process on how to really build in equity and make our cultural district community-centered. So basically, the staff serves as a platform to support a community voice through advisory councils. And this is constituent categories of arts and cultural arts institutions, small business and workers, residents of South the Market and the Tenderloin, community workers, service providers, volunteers and faith-based groups, youth and transitionally aged youth, Filipino older adults and people with disabilities, as well as school communities. So being able to have dialogue and open conversations about the concerns of all these constituents, and using staff as a sounding board to be able to push a lot of these ideas and initiatives forward through our chess process and through our advocacy efforts on a city and state level. That's really how we determined our process of governance.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Marisa, Barrio Logan, how did you go about getting, and I forgot if it's actually a board or an advisory panel, getting members?
So we formally don't have a board. However, the advisory group or the people that we turn to are basically the Barrio Logan Association. And that board, that advisory group, excuse me, is made up of property owners, business owners, residents, artists, community activists, stewards of different areas in the community. So for us, it was very important to ensure that there was someone with a voice for every different walk of life, I guess, in Barrio Logan, whether you're a resident or a community member or, a business owner. It's very different to be a business owner that just got there a year ago to the need of a resident who's been there for, 3 decades. So we wanted to ensure that we had representation from everyone in our community.
Thank you. We've got a couple minutes left, and then I'll turn it back over to the head people here, so they can kind of summarize. But maybe there's so many questions and comments, a lot of comments that you can all read in the chat, and hopefully you will capture all the comments and questions and be able to share that with everybody. I think you said that you would. So our wrap-up time is in 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and answer one question. We don't really know the 30 million that's upcoming. How is that going to be distributed? I mean, are we going to have an application process? What are the dates? I don't think we know any of that yet. There was a lot of questions asked in that regard. So if I can ask just one final question, guys, and then I'll turn it back over. Make it brief because we're out of time, right? But what can we as San Diego residents, or Rachel, in your case, up in San Francisco, what can the community do to help ensure that your district fulfills its vision? Very, very quickly. Start with you, Rachel.
Great, thank you. I mean, I think there's such a wealth of knowledge just in this room, and I'm not talking about just the panelists, but everyone who's here in attendance. We at Soma Pilipinas really rely on people power and our ability to use our resources and skills as individuals to contribute to the greater good. And so if there's any opportunity where you are able to provide recognition to a cultural district or access to that culture and the visibility of it, like those are the things that are really barriers to us preserving our culture. A lot of folks don't know that Filipinos landed in Morro Bay in 1587, or that Tagalog is the third most spoken language in California. And these are issues that are really detrimental to the future generations of Filipinos. And so You know, being able to fight for language access and things like that are really important to us. So be an ally and donate.
Okay, got it. Let's continue going south, north to south. CJ, what can we do as a community to help ensure your vision is fulfilled?
Yeah, honestly, I think more convenings like this, I really want to say thank you to the folks that put this on, because just hearing, what San Francisco is doing to make their district more robust, and my neighbors to the south, it's truly inspiring. And I think, this shared learning, this listening to each other, obviously we have very unique districts, but we all have similar needs, and that is wanting to preserve our local cultures, support our artists, and make these areas places where they can thrive.
Got it. And let's go to your Thursday Sunset Market every Thursday, right? That certainly wouldn't hurt. Peter, same question. What can we do? Is there anything we can do as a community to help Balboa Park?
To help Balboa Park. Balboa Park is a long, long way from where we used to be, which was, I would argue, somewhat insular. Everyone needs to show how Balboa Park is and can be far more one with the community. And I think we're going to get there with the experience plan. So basically I've got two, Vicky. One is get involved in the experience plan. Then for cultural districts throughout the state, when you're asked for support, if you're asked for support through Californians for the Arts, please do provide that. The revenue, the source of funding that's being proposed needs to be locked in. These cultural districts need help and they need funding. That's really how you can help at an absolute core.
Okay, perfect. One more district. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I'm going to talk a little bit about, before we close, about how is the state going to go about adding more than the 14 districts. So we'll talk about that at the end. But go ahead, Marisa, talk about what we can do to help Barrio Logan.
I think exactly what you do now, the advocacy for our cultural districts, for Barrio Logan, providing funding. It'd be nice to get a little bit more funding to be able to, program funding, to be able to really work on assisting our community, really. I think for us, it's a labor of love in Barrio Logan, and we all advocate for each other, and we continue to network and to really individually help each other. If I hear of something, I connect someone, they connect me, they bring. So just continuing to provide that advocacy, continuing to provide us with resources is what's really important. But most importantly, the support. The support and always being that voice for us is what's needed.
Perfect. We're almost out of time, but I just wanted to address that one question. How are they going to add new districts? And truth, I don't know. I'm not sure we know yet. I think we're talking about that process now. Maybe what I can do, guys, is find out that answer for you if there's something going on behind the scenes that I don't know about, and I'll share it. And then it'll be distributed to you accordingly. So with that, we are out of time. It's 12:29, and we can go on for another hour, I think, talking about this, but we simply cannot. So I'm going to turn it back over to who? To Tracy or to Victoria? Who closes?
I'll wrap us up. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vicki, for your leadership and guidance in this conversation. And thank you, panelists, for sharing your passion and your experiences and your insights. We so appreciate this. And of course, we will keep everyone posted abreast on advocacy opportunities to press for more funding and support, and pass on the input that we got from all of you, both guests and panelists today. The best way to stay in touch with us and to stay connected to that is, of course, to become a member, and there'll be another link provided in the chat. And we will do our best to engage the folks, your friends and colleagues that could not get into the meeting. We'll do our best to include them in today's really special and profound conversation. Deeply, deeply appreciate all of you being here and your input that you shared in the survey in the chat. And
thank you, Tracy, for your good work. Really appreciate it. And the planning committee and the SGRAC and Oceanside. Look for more information. Thanks.
And thank you all for asking great questions that hopefully we can answer as we go forward. And thanks for sticking on an extra 15 minutes. Bye-bye.